Beneath the sleek, cutting-edge surface of Tesla's factories, a storm was brewing, one that no innovation could mask and no electric motor could outrun. The workers, the heartbeat of Elon Musk's vision, were nearing their breaking point. And Elon, hailed as a visionary to the world, was the only one left unaware of the chaos unraveling in his own empire. Why would someone like Elon Musk, one of the richest and busiest people on Earth, decide to do this? It wasn't about fame or publicity. It wasn't about showing off his wealth or power. No, this decision came from something deeper. He wanted to know the truth about what was happening inside Tesla. Not the polished reports his managers gave him. Not the public image the world saw. Elon wanted to see Tesla through the eyes of the people who built it, his workers. It all started when Elon began hearing whispers about Tesla's factories. Workers were talking about long hours, harsh working conditions, and endless pressure. Some even hinted at injuries and burnout. Elon, a man who prides himself on creating a better future, couldn't ignore these stories. Was Tesla, the company he built to change the world, causing harm to its own employees? He needed answers. But there was one problem. No one would ever tell the CEO the whole truth. That's when Elon came up with his secret plan. He decided to disguise himself and work at Tesla as an ordinary factory worker. This wasn't an idea he shared with his team or advisors. He didn't want anyone to know, not even the top executives at Tesla. If people found out, they would act differently around him. They would hide the real problems. Elon wanted to see the truth, raw and unfiltered. Think about it for a moment. Imagine being one of the most powerful men in the world and choosing to step into the shoes of an everyday worker. Imagine leaving behind the luxury, the fame, and the comfort to work long hours on an assembly line. Why would Elon Musk do this? Because he believed in something bigger than himself. He believed in the mission of Tesla, but he also believed in the people who made it all possible. The idea was risky. Elon knew it wouldn't be easy. For starters, he's one of the most recognizable faces in the world. He couldn't just walk into a factory without being noticed. That's when the real planning began. Elon started working on his disguise. He grew out a beard to hide his face. He wore thick glasses that completely changed his look. He even practiced speaking differently to avoid being recognized by his voice. But the disguise was only one part of the plan. Elon also needed to understand what life was really like for his workers. He began researching the daily routines at Tesla factories. He studied how workers spent their shifts, what tasks they performed, and how they were treated. Elon didn't want to stand out. He wanted to blend in completely, to become just another face in the crowd. The day finally came when Elon Musk put on his disguise and stepped into a Tesla factory as a new hire. He walked through the doors, not as the CEO of one of the most successful companies in the world, but as a regular worker. No one recognized him. No one suspected a thing. But little did they know, this new worker was about to uncover secrets that would shock even the most loyal Tesla supporters. The tension was already high. Elon knew he was taking a huge risk. What if someone recognized him? What if his disguise failed? But despite the fear, he pushed forward. He wanted to see the truth, no matter how hard it might be to face. What would Elon discover in the heart of Tesla's factories? Would it be a story of dedication and teamwork, or would it reveal the darker side of his company? The answers were waiting, and Elon was determined to find them. Elon Musk, now fully disguised, entered the factory like any other new employee. The moment he walked through the doors, he felt the energy of the place. The loud hum of machines, the steady rhythm of workers assembling Tesla's famous electric cars, and the faint smell of metal and grease. It was a world far different from his sleek office or high-tech design labs. For the first time, Elon wasn't Elon Musk, the billionaire genius. He was just another worker. The first step was orientation. Like all new hires, Elon sat through a basic introduction to the factory. He learned about safety procedures, the company's expectations, and the daily routines. The irony wasn't lost on him. This was his company. He had created these rules. Yet, here he was, sitting quietly among other new workers, pretending to be one of them. After orientation, it was time to start working. Elon was assigned to an assembly line. His job was simple: attach specific parts to the cars as they moved down the line. It sounded easy, but Elon quickly realized it wasn't. The pace was relentless. Cars came one after another, leaving little room for error or rest. Every task had to be done perfectly, and it had to be done fast. Elon wasn't used to this kind of work. As the hours passed, he felt the strain in his arms and back. The repetitive motions were exhausting. He began to understand what his workers went through every day. But this was just the beginning. The real surprises were yet to come. During his breaks, Elon made it a point to talk to other workers. He didn't introduce himself as the CEO. Instead, he asked simple questions. How do you like working here? Is it tough? "What do you think about Tesla?" The answers he got were mixed. Some workers were proud to be part of Tesla. They believed in the company's mission to change the world. But others were more honest. They talked about the long hours, the stress, and the pressure to meet production goals. One worker, in particular, caught Elon's attention. He was an older man who had been with Tesla for years. "I love what we do here," the man said, "but it's not easy. They push us hard, and sometimes it feels like we're just machines ourselves." Elon didn't say much in response, but those words stuck with him. As the days went on, Elon began to notice more. Some workers seemed tired, really tired. He saw people skipping breaks to keep up with their task. He heard whispers about injuries, about workers who pushed themselves too hard because they didn't want to fall behind. The tension was building, and Elon knew he had to dig deeper. As Elon Musk continued working undercover, the picture became clearer, and it wasn't pretty. On the surface, everything seemed efficient. The Tesla factory buzzed with activity, and cars rolled off the assembly line at a steady pace. But underneath that surface, cracks were starting to show. Elon's sharp eyes noticed them immediately. The first thing Elon observed was the exhaustion. Many workers looked like they were running on empty. Dark circles under their eyes, slow movements during breaks, and quiet conversations about how long their shifts were, all signs that they were being pushed too hard. Some workers confided in Elon that they hadn't had a full day off in weeks. "We're working overtime just to hit production targets," one young worker said with a tired sigh. "I can't say no. They'll replace me." The word replace hit Elon hard. He had always imagined Tesla as a company that valued its workers, a place where people could grow and thrive. But the reality was different. Some workers felt like they were disposable, just cogs in a giant machine. It wasn't just the physical toll that worried Elon. It was the mental and emotional strain. One of the toughest moments for Elon came when he overheard a conversation between two workers. They were talking about injuries. "Did you hear about Sam?" one worker asked. "He hurt his back last week lifting those heavy parts. But they told him to come back to work anyway." Elon's stomach tightened. Injuries were supposed to be taken seriously at Tesla. There were safety rules in place for a reason. But those rules didn't seem to be followed. The drive to meet production targets was putting workers at risk. Elon knew he couldn't ignore this. He had to keep digging. One day, while working on the assembly line, Elon saw something that confirmed his worst fears. A worker stumbled and nearly fell. He was clearly exhausted, and his hands were trembling. Elon rushed to help him, but the supervisor on duty didn't even seem concerned. "Get back to work," the supervisor barked. "We can't afford any delays." Elon's blood boiled. This was not the Tesla he had dreamed of. It was becoming clear that the pressure to meet production goals had created a toxic environment. The workers were overworked, underappreciated, and, in some cases, even unsafe. But Elon wasn't done yet. He knew there were more secrets to uncover. And he was determined to see it all, no matter how painful the truth might be. The next few days were some of the hardest Elon Musk had ever experienced. As he continued working undercover, he felt the full weight of the expectations placed on Tesla's workers. The company's reputation for innovation and speed came at a high cost. And now, Elon was feeling that cost firsthand. The assembly line was relentless. Every minute of every hour was accounted for. There was no room for mistakes, no time to rest. If a single worker fell behind, the entire line would slow down, and slowing down was not an option. Elon started to feel the physical toll on his own body. His muscles ached. His hands were sore from the constant, repetitive task. He couldn't imagine how the full-time workers managed to do this day after day. During one particularly grueling shift, Elon noticed something unusual. A young worker, probably in his early 20s, was moving slower than usual. Sweat poured down his face, and he looked like he was on the verge of collapse. Elon wanted to help, but before he could, the supervisor appeared. "Pick up the pace," the supervisor snapped. "We're behind schedule." The young worker nodded weakly and tried to move faster, but it was clear he was struggling. Elon's heart sank. This wasn't just about meeting production goals. It was about basic human dignity. These workers deserved better. Later that day, Elon had a conversation with another worker during a break. The man was older, with years of experience under his belt. "It wasn't always like this," the man said quietly. "When I first started, it felt like we were building something special. But now? It's all about numbers. We're just statistics to them." Elon listened carefully. He could feel the weight of those words. The excitement and pride that had once filled Tesla's factories were fading. The workers felt invisible, and that broke Elon's heart. By the end of the shift, Elon knew he had seen enough. The pressure, the exhaustion, the injuries, it was too much. Something had to change. But how? Elon was just one man, even if he was the CEO. How could he fix a system that had grown so out of control? The turning point came one fateful afternoon. It started like any other day. Elon put on his disguise, clocked in, and began his shift. But halfway through the day, disaster struck. A worker collapsed on the floor. The entire assembly line came to a halt. Workers rushed to help, but it was clear the man was in bad shape. He was pale and breathing heavily. Elon felt a wave of panic wash over him. This wasn't just exhaustion. It was something much more serious. A supervisor arrived moments later. But instead of showing concern, he seemed annoyed. "Take him to the break room," the supervisor said flatly. "We need to get the line moving again." Elon couldn't believe what he was hearing. This was a human being, not a machine. How could anyone be so heartless? Without thinking, Elon stepped forward. "He needs medical attention," he said firmly. "Call for help." The supervisor shot him a sharp look. "Who do you think you are?" For a moment, Elon considered revealing his true identity. But he held back. This wasn't the time. Instead, he helped carry the worker to a safe place and stayed by his side until help arrived. That moment changed everything for Elon. He realized that Tesla's problems weren't just about long hours or tough working conditions. They were about a culture that valued speed and efficiency over people's well-being. And that culture needed to change fast. After the incident with the collapsed worker, Elon Musk felt an urgent need to dive even deeper. He continued working undercover, but this time with a sharper focus. He didn't just want to see the day-to-day routines. He wanted to understand the full picture. What was happening behind the scenes? Who was responsible for pushing the workers so hard? And more importantly, how could it be fixed? Elon began paying closer attention to the supervisors. He noticed that some of them were just as stressed as the workers. They were under constant pressure from higher management to meet production goals, no matter what. One supervisor, who seemed particularly overwhelmed, let out a frustrated sigh during a break. "They want miracles," he muttered to no one in particular. "If we don't hit the numbers, we're all in trouble." It was becoming clear to Elon that the pressure was coming from the top. The company's rapid growth had created unrealistic expectations. Tesla was producing more cars than ever before, but that success came at a price. The workers were being pushed to their limits, and no one seemed to care, except for those suffering in silence. One afternoon, Elon struck up a conversation with a young woman named Sarah. She had been working at Tesla for over a year, and her passion for the company's mission was evident. "I love what we're doing here," she said with a smile. "Electric cars are the future. We're changing the world." But then her smile faded. It's hard sometimes. We're not machines. We need breaks. We need support." Elon felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had always dreamed of creating a company that changed the world for the better, but somewhere along the way, something had gone wrong. The human element had been lost. Tesla's workers were the backbone of the company, and they deserved better. Despite the challenges, Elon also saw moments of resilience and camaraderie. Workers supported each other, sharing snacks during breaks or offering encouragement when someone was struggling. It was clear that the workers cared deeply about their jobs and each other. They just needed leadership that cared about them too. But there was still one question lingering in Elon's mind. How had things gotten this bad without him knowing? He decided it was time to dig into the company's internal reports. With his CEO access, Elon could review everything, from production metrics to worker feedback. What he discovered shocked him to the core. Late one night, after finishing his shift, Elon returned to his private office. Still wearing his factory clothes, he logged into Tesla's internal system. He wanted to see what the data said about worker conditions, injuries, and burnout. What he found confirmed his worst fears. The reports were filled with complaints from workers about long hours, physical exhaustion, and unsafe working conditions. There were detailed records of injuries, some of them serious. Yet, many of these complaints had been marked as resolved without any real action being taken. Elon's heart sank. How had this been allowed to happen? One report stood out. It was a letter from a group of workers sent to management months earlier. The letter pleaded for more support, better safety measures, and realistic production goals. The workers had written, "We believe in Tesla's mission, but we cannot give our best if we are broken." The letter had been ignored. Elon felt a mix of anger and guilt. He had trusted his management team to take care of Tesla's workers, but they had failed. And because of that, people were suffering. Elon knew he couldn't undo the past, but he could take action to change the future. The next day, Elon returned to the factory floor with a new sense of determination. He had a plan. He wasn't just going to listen, he was going to act. It was time to confront the truth head-on and rebuild Tesla from the ground up. But how would he do it? And would the workers trust him after everything they had been through? Elon gathered his senior management team in Tesla's main conference room the very next morning. Still wearing his factory uniform, he didn't waste any time with formalities. "I've seen the reports. I've talked to the people. This ends now. The room fell silent. The executives exchanged nervous glances, clearly taken aback by Elon's tone. "We are driving our workers into the ground," he continued, his voice unwavering. "You've ignored complaints. You've ignored injuries. We are supposed to be revolutionizing transportation, not sacrificing our people to do it." One executive, hesitant but brave enough to speak up, tried to defend the team. "Elon, we've had incredible demand. The shareholders expect—" "I don't care what the shareholders expect if it comes at this cost," Elon interrupted. "Tesla doesn't exist without its people. And if we continue like this, we'll lose everything." For the first time, the room saw a different side of Elon, raw, determined, and unflinchingly human. Elon outlined his plan. Effective immediately, Tesla would revamp production targets. Unrealistic production goals would be scrapped. Teams would have a say in setting achievable, sustainable targets. Enforce break times. Strict break periods would be implemented and enforced to allow workers time to rest and recharge. Safety overhaul. An independent safety committee would be established to review all past incidents and ensure preventive measures were in place moving forward. Worker advocacy group. A new internal group would be formed where workers could anonymously share concerns directly with Elon's office. Mental health and support services. Tesla would introduce mental health counseling, wellness initiatives, and a robust support network to help workers cope with stress. The leadership team was stunned. Some nodded in approval, others were too shocked to respond. But one thing was clear. Elon wasn't asking for permission, he was taking action. Back on the factory floor, word of Elon's plans spread like wildfire. Workers, initially skeptical, began to see real change within days. Supervisors were given new instructions: prioritize health and safety over numbers. Production targets were adjusted to more manageable levels, and breaks became mandatory. For the first time in a long time, there was hope. Sarah, the young woman Elon had spoken to earlier, noticed the shift almost immediately. "It's like we can finally breathe," she said to a coworker. "I didn't think anyone was really listening." Elon didn't stop at implementing changes. He spent more time on the floor than ever before, personally checking on conditions and listening to feedback. He encouraged workers to speak up, offering open-door meetings to anyone who wanted to share concerns. There were still challenges, of course. Some workers remained cautious, not yet ready to trust that things would stay better. Others struggled with the trauma of past experiences. But overall, morale began to improve. And with it, so did productivity, not because people were being pushed, but because they felt valued. One afternoon, Elon received a simple note from a worker. It read, "Thank you for seeing us." Weeks passed, and the changes at Tesla began making headlines. Reports of better working conditions and a renewed company culture were spreading. Investors, at first concerned about the impact on production, saw an unexpected result: Tesla's reputation was improving. Customers, inspired by the stories, began to rally around the brand's renewed commitment to people. Elon held a company-wide meeting in the main assembly hall to mark the new era. Thousands of workers attended, curious to hear what their CEO had to say. "We've made mistakes," Elon admitted. "I've made mistakes. But together we are building something stronger, something that's not just about cars or technology. It's about people." A wave of applause erupted through the hall. For the first time, the workers weren't just employees, they were partners in a shared vision. As the meeting ended, Elon stood at the edge of the stage, watching the crowd disperse. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Tesla was far from perfect, but they were on the right path now. And as Elon walked back to the factory floor, he knew one thing for certain: Tesla's future was no longer just about innovation. It was about humanity. With the new policies firmly in place, Tesla began to see a transformation not just in morale, but in innovation. Empowered workers started sharing ideas, innovative ways to streamline production, enhance safety protocols, and even improve the design of Tesla's vehicles. Elon made sure that these ideas didn't just get acknowledged but were acted upon. Sarah, the young woman Elon had spoken to, became a central figure in this new wave of collaboration. She suggested a rotating task system that would prevent repetitive strain injuries while keeping workers engaged in different aspects of the production process. The system was trialed and proved highly successful, reducing injuries and boosting morale. Elon personally commended her for the idea during a company meeting. "Sarah's idea is proof that when we listen to our people, we don't just improve lives, we improve Tesla," he said. The company's safety committee also began to have a real impact. They identified several high-risk areas and worked to redesign them for better safety. Injuries that had once been common started to drop dramatically. Workers began to trust that their concerns were no longer falling on deaf ears. Elon knew that while the internal atmosphere was improving, there was one more hurdle to clear: the board of directors. He needed their full support for the sweeping cultural changes he had implemented. Some board members had already expressed concerns about the short-term impact on Tesla's output, and Elon was prepared for a tough meeting. When he walked into the boardroom, the air was tense. One director, a longtime advocate of aggressive production goals, didn't waste time. "Elon, we've seen the reports. Production numbers are slightly down. How do you justify this?" Elon didn't flinch. "Yes, production has dipped temporarily. But we are creating a sustainable future for Tesla, one where our workers are safe, motivated, and able to innovate. In the long run, this will increase production, not decrease it." He then presented data from the past few weeks: improved quality control, reduced turnover rates, and increased worker satisfaction. The numbers spoke for themselves. Even the most skeptical board members began to nod in approval. Another director chimed in. "And the public response has been overwhelmingly positive. Our brand reputation is better than ever." The vote of confidence was unanimous. Tesla's board officially backed Elon's new vision for a people-first company. As news of Tesla's transformation spread, other companies took notice. Industry leaders began reaching out to Elon, curious about how he had managed to turn things around so quickly. Conferences invited him to speak on leadership and culture. The narrative had shifted. Tesla was no longer just a symbol of innovation in electric vehicles. It was now a beacon of ethical leadership and workplace reform. Sarah was invited to represent Tesla at a major industry safety conference. Standing on stage, she shared her story of how Tesla had evolved. "What we did wasn't easy," she told the audience. "But when leadership listens, when they genuinely care, change becomes possible." Elon watched from the crowd, filled with pride. Sarah's words were a testament to everything they had fought for. 1 year after the initial changes, Elon held a celebration at Tesla's main factory. It was a day to honor the workers and the new culture they had built together. There were speeches, music, and even a time capsule ceremony, where workers wrote letters about their hopes for the future of Tesla. As the sun set, Elon took the stage one final time. "We didn't just change policies, we changed who we are as a company. And we did it together." The crowd erupted into applause, but Elon knew the journey was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that with the strength of his team, they could face anything. As he looked out at the crowd, at Sarah, at the supervisors who had found their voices, and at the workers who were now the heart and soul of Tesla, Elon felt something he hadn't in a long time. Tesla wasn't just a company. It was a family. And together, they were unstoppable.